Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. How about this? You can go swimming and at the same time help Special Olympics. Who wouldn't want to do that? I'm Brian Cleary, and today on the Mount Pleasant Podcast, we're talking with the Public Information Officer with the Mount Pleasant Police Department. Ashley Croy joins us. Ashley, it sounds pretty simple. Go in the water and help Special Olympics, but there is one catch, right? The water might not be the optimum temperature.
Yes, sir. And it is that simple. You can jump in if you want to. However, you don't have to. You can still cheer on everyone like I do from the sand, staying warm, and still raise money and awareness for Special Olympics.
So we're talking about the upcoming FREEZIN for a Reason. It's the Isle of Palms Polar Plunge that'll be on Saturday, February 22nd, there along the Isle of Palms. So give me the good reason, Officer Croy. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but the real reason that we want people to participate and jump in the Atlantic Ocean is Special Olympics. Can you tell me a little bit about why police, not just here in the Low Country, but it seems like across the nation, you guys, the men and women in blue, really support Special Olympics?
South Carolina has over 30,000 athletes for Special Olympics. And this is athletes that range in age from juveniles all the way to adults. And really what helps them with the funds that we are able to raise from the community is that it allows them to be part of a team, to help them build characteristics such as like team building. They learn responsibilities, and it gives them confidence. So it's all over just helping them, with social skills and things of that nature. And the confidence is the huge one about it.
So it's an amazing cause that we're going to go in the water for. So let's talk a little bit about the event coming up on Saturday, February 22nd. We say the Isle of Palms. Obviously, that's a huge beach. Where are we going on the Isle of Palms to do the plunge?
Yep, this is our 10th year hosting it. And we always partner with the Windjammer on the Isle of Palms. At 10:30 is going to be registration, but we're going to take the plunge at noon. So if you come and register at 10:30, you can get some gear that has Special Olympics on it. You can meet some athletes. Bach to Rock is going to be there with music, and there's going to be a costume contest. So we do encourage people to dress up.
And that becomes a little bit of a competition, which is part of the fun part of it, right? I've seen some well, I'm looking for the word, interesting, challenging, whatever it is. Some people are really creative with their content, with their costumes.
Absolutely. We've seen onesies, tutus, and it could be a single person that decides that they want to dress up as one thing, or it can be a whole group. It's really up to you, and just be creative and fun with it.
So the event again coming up on Saturday, February 22nd. Officer Croy, if I want to be a part of the Polar Plunge, what's the first step I need to take?
Go to our Classy page. The easiest way to find that is to go to our Facebook or our Instagram. We have the link pinned directly at the top of our social media platforms. Follow that link to the Classy page and join. You can create a team, or you can just donate, whatever you feel is in your heart, the right thing to do.
And so for everybody, to reiterate that, if your biggest reason to not do the Polar Plunge is because you don't want to go in the 50-degree Atlantic Ocean, you can still make a donation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can still make a donation, even if you can't make it to the event or you don't want to take the plunge. You can still come out and just enjoy the atmosphere, get to know the athletes firsthand and their loved ones.
In 1982, it was East Cooper Magazine. Now it's Mount Pleasant Magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine is about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Your community, your magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
This is a fun event we're talking about. It's the FREEZIN for a Reason, the ILP Polar Plunge, put on every year by the Town of Mount Pleasant Police Department. It's coming up in front of the Windjammer there on Saturday, February 22nd. We want you to be a part of it. I'm Brian Cleary. This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast, where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. We're talking with the Public Information Officer from the Town of Mount Pleasant Police Department, Officer Ashley Croy, joining us. Now, Officer Croy, in terms of other police departments, do you find that you get support from them as well for the Polar Plunge?
Absolutely. This is multiple agencies that come out for this event. We have the Isle of Palms that is also going to be there hosting with us. Charleston County comes out. Everyone in the Low Country comes together, and it's not just law enforcement, but it's businesses, your neighbors, everyone's involved.
And we're looking to raise a fairly substantial amount of money at the Plunge. What's this year's goal?
So last year we had a goal of 50,000 and we exceeded that. So this year we made it a little bit more challenging and we put it at 60,000.
Now, you mentioned the fact that there are other police departments from across the Low Country that will come and support the event. What about other businesses? Can you tell me about some of the community support that the Polar Plunge is receiving?
Bach to Rock is a supporter as well. All of our media stations are always huge supporters of this. And then we also have Bowman Place here in Mount Pleasant. They have contributed a significant amount as well. A lot of the schools, the classes come together and they'll create their own page as well.
Now, you've referenced it a couple of times about coming out, meeting the athletes. I mean, there's more to this event. We mentioned the costume contest. This is really just a fun day on the beach.
It is. And it's a really fun event for everyone to come together. And yes, we're raising funds, but most importantly, we want to get the word out there about Special Olympics, and I touched on how it affects the athletes in a positive way, but it really does trickle throughout the family as well, because a lot of parents come to this and they see that their daughter or son are included in things that they weren't sure that they could be included in. So that's a huge part as well. It's overall gratifying.
Officer Croy, let me go down that road a little bit further because I know that you've experienced it, and I have had the honor, the privilege of being at some Special Olympic events and have also experienced just the pure joy these athletes have when they participate in that kind of event and the enthusiasm. And again, I'll use the word again, but it's joy. It really makes you feel good as well.
The best way that I can put it is that it's very humbling for you to experience it, and it's beautiful in the same way, just because you can see people's eyes light up and then the parents are, enjoying it as well. So overall, it's a great event. It's one of my favorite events. I love contributing to the Special Olympics because it touches everyone, not just the athletes.
So we'll start the registration at 10:30. Then we move into the costume contest, the Plunge at noon. And the event actually continues on. And for people who aren't familiar with Bach to Rock, we're talking about a music school, and these kids will then be performing, correct?
It's a Mount Pleasant music school here. And it's kids. They're learning to play songs. They're playing songs that you're familiar with, which is also great. So it's not songs that you're unfamiliar with and you're not able to sing along, dance along with. It's overall a huge community event. Everyone is included down to the music.
So we're looking forward to it coming up on Saturday, February 22nd, the FREEZIN for a Reason ILP Polar Plunge that's being put on again the 10th year by the Town of Mount Pleasant Police Department and the town's Public Information Officer with the Police Department, Ashley Croy, joining me, Brian Cleary, here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Now, Officer Croy, recently we've seen this in the news a little bit, and you know more about this, but there is a connection, as we talked about, with police and the Special Olympics. And here in South Carolina, there's also a connection through the Torch Run. Can you explain what the Torch Run is?
Yes. So my understanding is that we do this around May, and that essentially officers run the torch in. Sometimes some athletes might join in towards the end, but we run the torch in to basically start the games for the season.
And it's really an amazing thing that torch will start, I think sometimes on Sullivan's Island, goes across the state into Columbia,
Absolutely.
and different officers handing that off. And there's just been some amazing amounts of money raised with the torch run, and really the police department, the men and women in blue, supporting Special Olympics. It's a very special thing. Now, Officer Croy, if you wouldn't mind, if we could talk a little bit about your role. What was it that made you decide, hey, I want to be a police officer?
That's a very good question. Honestly, I really liked solving things. So my main goal was to possibly become into the crime scene aspect, and then working patrol. I felt that was more satisfying because I was able to help people in a different way. And I just stayed on patrol for the longest time and never left.
So how long is it now that you've been with the Town of Mount Pleasant Police Department?
13 years.
So that being the case, obviously, it's something that's been good for you. If you've been there 13 years, you must like it.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I enjoy Mount Pleasant a lot. I feel like the community really supports us. We do a lot of different community events that allow us to speak to our community and understand their problems so that we can tailor our responses to their needs.
So in a way, an event like this, the Polar Plunge, that benefits Special Olympics, which is fantastic and is a good time for the community, which is great. But this is another way of ingrading, I guess, the police and the community.
A lot of police officers are going to be there in general, a lot from Mount Pleasant. And this is a great opportunity for the community to come up and talk to us about any needs that they have, or for us to come to them and say, hey, like, I see that you're at this event, and what do you think about it? What do you think about our agency? What else can we do for you?
In terms of you yourself, are you originally from Mount Pleasant?
No, sir, I am not. I'm from the state, but I actually met Lieutenant Calabrese, and he was very warm and welcoming about the department and put in straight away.
Yeah, he's a very convincing guy. He can be a very, very convincing guy. He's a great guy, no doubt about it. And then everybody who comes on the Mount Pleasant podcast, I always ask, because we need to give people a bearing on where you sit. Carolina, Clemson, which way do you fall?
Oh, I feel like this is it's not a hard question, but definitely Carolina, because I did go to USC Lancaster, so I have to continue to rep them.
Gamecocks it is. Completely understandable. So for somebody who's joining us on the podcast and wondering, how do you explain that your job? What does a public information officer for a police department do?
A lot of people ask that because they are unaware of what the job holds. So not only do I just monitor social media, post things on social media, and have two-way conversations on that platform, but I also make sure that we're putting out timely, accurate, relative information to the public, to the media, so that they can help push that out as well. Just anything that is critical and that the public needs to know about.
And so there is a high level of importance in that job, because information is a key to any community outlet.
Yes, sir.
And so you will, of course, be there on February 22nd, correct? But I suspect that you'll be too busy to get into the water.
Not be getting into the water, and we know that you don't have to. So I will be taking pictures. I will be talking to everyone there and handing out gear for Special Olympics, whatever I need to do to help make it successful.
It's going to be a great day, and you want to be a part of it. And again, the costume contest is just going to be, it really is. I mean, people need to understand this is a really fun part of what is a fun event.
It is, absolutely. And it's always fun every year to see how the costumes change, because you see who won last year and you're like, okay, I got to do better this year. I got to have a more unique costume. So I'm really excited to see that part this year.
It's true. The people who participate in the costume contest try to raise their game every single year. So it'll be interesting to see what we see this year. And again, if people want to get registered, want to get involved with the Polar Plunge, now's a great time to do that. What is it that they should do to be involved?
They should go to our Facebook page, Mount Pleasant Police Department, South Carolina. At the top, we pinned Polar Plunge. If you click on that, it will give you a link to our Classy page, and you just join a team, or you can donate.
And again, back in your role as public information officer, if somebody wants to follow along and get information from the town of Mount Pleasant, is there a certain platform that they should be on?
No, absolutely not. And that's the great thing about it is that we understand that while we have a huge following on Facebook, there are some people that like to use Instagram or just X. So any of them will work. A lot of our information we are now putting on the town website. So I always recommend, if you can't find it on our Facebook, go to our town website, send us a message, or look for anything under the police tab.
Come on out and hang out with members of the Mount Pleasant Police Department and Special Olympians, because the FREEZIN for a Reason IOP Polar Plunge on Saturday, February 22nd, in front of the Windjammer on the Isle of Palms will benefit Special Olympics, and town of Mount Pleasant Police Department is going to be there. Hopefully you will be there as well. Officer Croy, thanks so much for all the information and for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Cleary, and thanks to you for joining us here where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive, the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast, your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.